I tell you, you got to keep laughing to keep from crying. The power keeps going out. So I get, partway through the forecast and then boom, the power goes out. I get to start over again. So my first attempt was a half hour ago. I think this is attempt number 3, 8:14 now in the morning on Tuesday, September 24th. Lots to talk about with our impending major hurricane. It looks like now heading towards Florida. It's not even a tropical storm yet, but the forecast is for a major hurricane. The latest forecast came out 8 o'clock Eastern time, so about an hour and 15 minutes ago as I'm recording now. I was trying to get this out to you as soon as I could. We'll see if the power stays on through at least through this forecast, and then it can do what it wants, I guess. All right, here are your hazards across the country right now and around the Golden Gate Bridge, San Francisco area. I'm a little rattled. I'm sorry. It's a heat advisory for the San Francisco area, so be advised it's going to be hot. It's going to be really hot around Phoenix. Excessive heat warning, so excessive heat here. And it's going to stay hot through the weekend in the desert Southwest. All the way up in Montana, it's a high wind watch, so watch out for high wind. Dense fog, be advised for Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and the Delmarva with some coastal flooding concerns still. But the big story is Florida and what will be Major Hurricane Helene if the forecast comes true. So we have hurricane watches up, tropical storm watches up, flood watches up, and the flood watches go all the way into Georgia and Alabama. And we'll show you that flooding potential could go all the way into the Midwest with Helene. But let's get into our weather spotlight, spotlight, spotlight. It's all about Tropical Cyclone Nine in the Caribbean right now. It looks like it's going to move between the Yucatan Peninsula and Cuba, bring some very heavy rain there, and strengthen into a hurricane by the time it gets into the Gulf, and then move towards Florida and become a major hurricane by Thursday afternoon. Sustained winds greater than 110 miles an hour. Tropical storm as it goes into Georgia, and then a tropical depression all the way up into Indiana. But that moisture is going to be heading into the Midwest, and so flash flooding will be far and wide. We'll show you that here in just a map or two. But the storm surge is looking like this. This is the latest prediction again, an hour and 17 minutes ago from the National Hurricane Center. So storm surge is up and down the Florida coast. The bullseye there between a town I can't pronounce to a river I can't pronounce in the purple, 10 to 15 feet storm surge is major. Here's your flash flooding concerns, and they are widespread. So even in the yellow, the slight, at least 15% chance of flash flooding all the way from the Gulf side of Florida, the western half of Florida into the Panhandle, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, most of Tennessee, and a circle there from northern Arkansas into Missouri, and even the marginal, at least 5% risk goes all the way up to Pittsburgh, and as far west as eastern Oklahoma. And so flooding concerns are a concern with Tropical Cyclone 9, soon to be Helene. And here are those rainfall amounts. And the highest on here is 8 to 12 inches, which we could see even in the Appalachian Mountains. And, widespread 6 to 8 on this map. And even 4 to 6 gets all the way up there into Missouri and Virginia. So it's looks like a lot of rain coming. Not just your regular hurricane problems. Obviously, when hurricanes make landfall, they spin up tornadoes, sustained winds over 110 miles an hour, some devastating damage, power outages, the whole nine, coming with Tropical Cyclone 9. And we'll keep you posted here best we can as long as the power stays on. Oh my gosh. All right. Surface for today. Here's what's going on. We see a little bit of rain down there in southwestern Iowa. It just ended here. It was on the light side, but it rained for a good hour and a half. So very refreshing. So parts of the Midwest seeing the rain today as that cold front makes a little bit further eastward progress. Kind of stalled out in Texas, but some showers and storms around that. The heaviest rainfall, the severe potential, Kentucky, West Virginia, Ohio. We can show you that on the severe map. That's where our slight risk is. Around that, a marginal risk, all the way from Indiana, Ohio, the Virginias, the Carolinas, Tennessee, most of Tennessee. Memphis, you're left out. Sorry about that. Oklahoma, too. Oklahoma City, down to just north of the Big D, Dallas, marginal risk here. Where's our tornado risk? There is one. It's a slight tornado risk. Mainly West Virginia, southern Ohio, and Kentucky. So be on the lookout here for a slight risk of some tornadoes. Make sure you have ways of getting warnings if you're in this area. Highs today, pretty high. There's your heat advisory, your excessive heat warning for Phoenix, 106 today. And temperatures near 100 to low 100s, central California, and then up the coast, even 91 for Eugene, 89 for Portland, Oregon. So pretty warm on the west coast to the southwest. But you get inland, it starts to cool off. A lot of 70s on this map. 60s and 70s, really, for the Rockies. Some 80s, though, eastern Washington. Then you get into the actual Midwest, northern plains, Midwest 70s, all the way down through Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, a few 80s in Ohio, and then 60s for the Northeast and parts of Michigan, Wisconsin. But we have 90s back in West Texas or close to it. A lot of Texas near 90, low 90s, mid 90s through the Southeast. Lows tomorrow morning still look refreshing though. Lots of 40s and 50s on this map. The exceptions, desert Southwest, Central California, 60s in Central California, but 70s, desert Southwest. A lot of 70s, Texas coast through the Southeast as well. Surface for tomorrow, our cold front kind of stalls out, stationary front now through Kentucky, Indiana, Mississippi, back into Texas. And ahead of that, we're starting to see heavy rain, flash flooding possible. As it says, Tropical Storm 9. There's another tropical system that could form. It hasn't yet. That's out in the Atlantic. And if it forms first, it'll be Helene. But it's pretty likely that our storm heading towards Florida is going to be Helene, Tropical Storm Helene by tomorrow. And we see the heavy rainfall for Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, a little bit of Florida here. Highs tomorrow. A lot of 70s and 80s in the plains, all the way into Texas. More 80s in the southeast, 70s and 80s for the Midwest, 60s for the Northeast. Still hot, desert Southwest, 108 for Phoenix. A little cooler, though, California and West Coast. So mid-90s Central California and even some 70s and 80s for Western Oregon. Here's your 48-hour rainfall. This is what we're already seeing, that rain moving in from, again, Tropical Cyclone number 9. And we'll see that heavy rain, mainly in the Gulf, 4 to 6 inches here, but starting to move into Florida, some of that 4 inches plus. And we see 4 inches plus again into the mountains, so the Smoky Mountains there in northern Georgia into Tennessee. So this is our biggest area for the heavy rainfall. And the Pacific Northwest, some decent rains up to 2 inches for the foothills of the Cascades, for example. Surface for Thursday, as we look ahead, here comes Hurricane 9. Again, likely to be Helene. And here's why it's not going to move further to the west. You see our cold front through Mississippi, through Louisiana, that's going to block any westward progress. And so the hurricane has to go into Florida. There's really doesn't have an option. So it's going to head north. It can't head west. And so Florida looks like, I wouldn't say 100%, but 98%. Anyway, Florida's the bullseye. Heavy rains into Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, North Carolina, as we've already covered in this forecast. So this is the big weather story, of course. All right, we're going to show you now on the European model how things look. And so as I move through time here, we do see a lot of showers already in the Midwest into the mid-Atlantic, back into the Tennessee Valley, northern Mississippi. This is tonight. As we get into towards midnight, this is midnight tonight, and we see, again, this is our main area of rain for today. And again, our severe weather threat, don't forget, is right in here. Tornado threat, a slight tornado threat, and then the severe weather threat gets a little bit bigger, and we can see why here on the European. A little bit of shower activity back in Oklahoma and Arkansas as well. As we get into the day tomorrow, we see that front moving to the south and east. We see our hurricane approaching from the south. It's got nowhere to go. It can't go west, so it's going to head into Florida, almost guaranteed. And so as we go through the day Wednesday, we start to see our hurricane come into view, and we start to see some of those outer bands, some of those heavy rain, some of that heavy rain moving into Florida. And then we see along our front, ahead of the hurricane, heavy rains. And then as the hurricane starts to interact with that stationary front, I mean, just storms, heavy rainfall explode here. And as our storm forms into a hurricane and heads towards Florida, it just starts to get windy. The rain continues to fall. And then again, when you have landfalling hurricanes, you end up with tornadoes. So tornadoes are going to be a risk here, especially from north and east of the storm. And then, again, heavy rainfall for the southeast all the way into the Midwest over time. And so as we go through time, here's our landfall late Thursday. This takes us to midnight Thursday, just inland now, moving into Georgia. Very heavy rainfall, still a hurricane, weakening though to tropical storm force as we get into Friday. And you can see how fast it's moving to the north. The fast forward movement is probably a good thing if you don't want too much rain. We're still going to get tons of rain, but it would be even more if it was a slower moving storm. And so as we get into Friday afternoon now, we start to see the showers, moving into the Midwest now. And of course, through the mid-Atlantic and parts of the southeast, still getting some heavy rain, thunderstorms, possible tornadoes, the whole 9 yards, and still some pretty gusty winds. Even when it gets below tropical storm strength, we'll probably have some tropical storm strength gusts. So saturated ground, winds gusting to 45, 50, could still blow down some trees even into the Ohio Valley. So keep an eye out for that as we move into the weekend. The storm weakens, but the moisture remains. All right, speaking of the weekend, and I think we were. Remember the consultant said, Mike, people want to know what the forecast is through the weekend. So that's what we try to do here on the Weather Mike. We'll just do the temperatures right now. And the biggest thing that stands out to me is Phoenix at 110 on Saturday. Ouch. Low to mid 90s, Central California, but 60s and 70s now from Eugene up through Seattle. Inland in the west, 70s and 80s. Plains, we're looking at 70s and 80s. Texas, 80s. Along the coast, though, more like mid-90s. Our rain-cooled 70s in the Midwest with all that moisture from what's probably going to be Helene. 70s and a few 60s way up there in the Northeast. As we move into, so we go from Saturday to Sunday. You see Texas heat up a little bit. Upper 80s to near 90. Let's do that again. Saturday, Sunday, the desert Southwest stays hot. Central California stays hot. The plains, a lot of 70s here to near 80. Into the Midwest, a lot of 70s to near 80. For the central, mid-Atlantic, that's what I'm trying to say, up into the Northeast, a lot of 70s here, 80s returning to the Southeast. All right, let's go longer term, 6 to 10 day temperature probability. And the probabilities are looking above average temperatures pretty much nationwide for the lower 48. This is September 29th through October 3rd. Now, I talked to a farmer last night, and this is kind of good weather for harvest because they've started harvesting already. And so, we keep it dry. That's probably good for harvesting here in the Midwest. And because we've had not only enough rain, I'm speaking from western Iowa mainly, but I think this is the case in at least our area. We've had enough rain well timed through the summer that our corn crop, for example, looks really good this year. So it looks like good temperatures and etc. for harvest, and our 6 to 10 day precipitation. It looks like the best chance of above average precipitation southeast, Midwest, Great Lakes, eastern Great Lakes, into the mid-Atlantic and parts of the Northeast. Drier than average, the best chance for that would be eastern New Mexico, West Texas, but all the way into parts of the West. So there you have it. I mean, a lot on Helene. The power didn't go out this time, so I can get this posted for you. And what I was going to say, oh yeah, we'll keep you posted on Helene as we go, of course. So be on the lookout, and I know you're already preparing if you're in that area. So 16 minutes in, really appreciate your time and patience with me, and we'll do it again tomorrow right here on the Weather Mic.